He's a proud, lifelong resident of Bedford County, calling the Unionville community home. He is the owner of a historic 100-acre farm that has been in his family since 1866, proudly representing the eighth generation of farmers to work that land. Jason and his wife, Melissa, reside in the very home his family moved into in 1978, continuing a legacy of tradition and deep roots in the community. A dedicated public servant, Jason has been an active member of the Unionville Fire Department since childhood, exemplifying a lifelong commitment to service. He is also a devoted member of Calvary Baptist Church.
Yep, got it. Well, thanks for this opportunity. I'd like to thank Brandy for inviting me to come on board with this presentation. This is a relatively new experience for me. I've done a lot of speaking before. She told me I only had 15 minutes, and, well, I'm a barber, so it's going to be a stretch for me to get it squeezed in. Like I said, I'm actually, like you said, segue into it, I'm an eighth-generation farmer. I've been on the same farm since 1866. Just to give you a little backstory on it, my ancestors purchased the farm. They were the Damerons back then. They purchased it from a Ziza Moore family who moved on the farm back in the early 1850s. Just to give you an idea on the price range of what it was purchased for compared to land nowadays, they gave, I believe it was $3,000 for approximately 153 acres in 1866. That won't be a touch, a yard in nowadays prices. My family, the way it was purchased out, the way they did it back then, was that the first year they made a down payment of $2,000, and for the next 2 years at Christmas, they paid $500 to finish out what was the remaining balance. So that's really a trustworthy thing, a way they did things back then, and have the opportunity to purchase land and do things. As it transitioned throughout, the family went from a Dameron family, the Blankenship family married into that, and that's when it transitioned more into the Barber family. My great-grandmother, who was actually a Blankenship at that time, Jenny B. Barber, she always told her husband, the late Joe Bedford Barber, my great-grandfather, that contrary to the Barber name being on this farm, you just remember that this farm came from the Blankenships, not the Barbers. So we want to make sure that you get this correct. Around 1938, my great-grandfather, J.B. Barber, Joe Bedford Barber, opened a general store, Barbertown Farm, or should I say J.B. Barber and Sons. They had a peddler wagon and such as that, and they traveled around and done. That store was actually in business from the best I done. The information was 1938 through 1945, at which time one of the sons, my uncle, Homer Barber, went into the war. My grandfather and great-grandfather kept it going for a little while longer. The store building actually itself still exists. My cousin, for those that may be familiar with Smo, a country rapper per se, are in the area. He actually owns the building, and he turned it into kind of a studio, so it's still active in some aspects. So it's just a proud moment to be able to keep that building active as it is. For myself, the farm, whenever I was born, of course, my great-grandfather already passed, but my grandfather and uncle, which John Luster Barber was my grandfather. Make sure it's Luster. It is not Lester. I was informed of that growing up for many years, that it's got a U, not an E. They kept it going, and then, of course, as the generations passed on, my grandfather passed away in 97. Then my dad and I more or less took over the farm and kept it going as long as we possibly could. One of the circumstances, which I'm proud to see there are so many Century Farms still out there. I'm not officially on the Century Farm label as of yet, and I'll explain to you why I've not done it just yet. Being a farmer, for one thing, as we all know, is a difficult job, but for me, it's proven to be quite a bit more difficult, especially since my dad passed away, meaning in 2009, I was actually deemed legally blind due to a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. So trying to manage and operate a family farm and trying to keep the legacy going as long as I can, being visually impaired, is definitely a challenge within itself. But as my grandfather would tell me growing up, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. And as they also say, can't never could do anything. So persistence in my bloodline is there, or maybe persistence is not the term you should use, bullheadedness. That's what we like to use, bullheaded and the can-do opportunity and try to figure things out for ourselves. So when I say I'm legally blind, I can honestly say you guys are the best looking group I've talked to today. So, so but, you know, truly, like I said, it's 100 acres. I do primarily hay bales, do some round bales, square bales. That's kind of offsets the expenditures on the farm. I have a few head of cattle, approximately 30 head, which I downgraded quite a bit as far as the number, just so where I could actually manage and operate the herd myself. For any of you that might be, wondering, well, okay, if you're legally blind or, can't see well, how can you do that? Well, you just got to have the will to want to do. And when I say that, I don't say in a bragging fashion. It's just I made a promise to my dad before he passed away, and not expecting to pass away when he did, is like, I'll keep this going as long as I possibly can. That's why I had the blessing to be able to inherit the farm and continue it on. Unfortunately, in my situation, I don't have any children of my own, and the rest of the family doesn't have any interest in the farm. As a matter of fact, I asked my aunt while she and my dad both were still in relatively good health, what would my grandfather, which I was his shadow growing up. I mean, I was with him every moment that I could, and he taught me so many things as far as work ethic, being smart with finances and stuff like that. What would he want me to do when it gets to the point that I can't do it anymore, whether it's health, vision, financial, or whatever? Would he want me to sell the farm and finish out my days with it, or hand it off to the family? And they both conventionally said, sell it. Because if you hand it off to somebody else in the rest of the family that has no interest in farming, what are they going to do with it? That's a question to you. What would you think somebody would want to do if no? They would sell it. Exactly. And that's what they was like, well, you've done all the work on this farm, you've grown up on it, so you might as well benefit. But I did reassure them that it would be an absolute last resort before I had to sell it. And the next thing is, it would be crushing to me to actually have to finally get to that point. Now, that's not to say at some point there may be opportunities there that, that you can pass it on to another individual or something like that. But the only way I would even consider that is it would be locked down that even that person or the next generation can't sell it. So there's a lot of loopholes and stuff to go through. Going back to one of my original questions that some of you may have is like, okay, well, how do you, if you're visually impaired, how do you do what you do? Well, retinitis pigmentosa is a degenerative disease, meaning there's no cure, there's no treatment, it's going to continue to get worse, and it has got worse. I have good days and bad days. Do I operate equipment? Yes. Can I do this on the farm? Yes. But you have to understand, I'm 54 years old. I've been on that farm. And first thing is, if I'm on my tractor and I run through a fence, guess who gets to fix it? So I'm going to be a little more cautious. And like cutting hay and tethering, raking, and do stuff like that, the way I look at it, hey, if I'm cutting hay and I leave a stalk of hay, who's going to fuss? It's me. So a big deal. It's my hay and such as that. To get back into how I managed to do things, I was very, very fortunate. Well, let's just say tragedy brings on good things. I know that don't make any sense, but it does. In 2018, some of you locally may know or may not, on Valentine's Day, when my mom and dad and myself were crossing the square here in Shelbyville, headed to Bocelli's, it was actually Valentine's Day, struck a pickup truck came around the square and struck my parents. Killed mom right there. I was there. And my dad, he was already suffering with Parkinson's and dementia. So I became his caregiver. Then I had to come into taking care of the farm. Luckily, he was still healthy enough to be able to help somewhat. He was kind of my eyes. During that time, I discovered an organization called Agribility. I know probably the biggest part of you, if all of you, have never heard of a program called Agribility. Agribility is a nationwide program that's located in about 23 states, I think, in the country. Their goal is to take people like myself that's disabled in some fashion. If you want to keep farming, they will do every way in the world to make it happen. In my case, they put me in contact with vocational rehabilitation and the Star Center, which is a nonprofit in Jackson, Tennessee. They helped me find a lot of assistive technologies to do what I need to do. If you yourself am a farmer that's somewhat disabled. It doesn't matter if it's blindness. It could be mobility. It could be hearing. It could be any way. It could be, some type of psychological, like PTSD, or because they help a lot of disabled veterans and stuff like that to try to keep farming. So I guess their motto is, if it can be done, they'll make it happen. And if you want to farm, and then when I say farm, it doesn't have to be 100 acres. It don't have to be 50 acres. 5 acres is a farm to a lot of people. Sometimes I wish that's all I had was 5 acres. But they bring on a lot of technologies and such as that. And I'll just give you a little bit of a taste of some of the technologies that I use. There's probably some older farmers here that probably are like, I would use any sort of electronics or assistive tools to do. Well, first off, till 2019, I never had a smartphone. I was still using the old flip phone. And, I couldn't, now my phone reads things to me. But one of my primary tools I use, open ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, open, create an image.
Now, ChatGPT, if those of you not familiar with it, it's AI. Now, before you freak out, AI is not going to destroy the world. Everybody's like, oh my God, AI, it's the devil. We're not going to. You thought the same thing about the internet when it started too, but guess what? You can't live without it now, hardly. And it's such a valuable tool for somebody that's visually impaired to have somebody do a lot of things for you. Actually, to explain a lot how I use the technologies nowadays and how I incorporate a lot of old school technology, meaning the way my grandfather taught me how to do things on the farm, with a lot of the new age technologies. It's kind of crazy how things work. And I'll
switch to voice mode. Switch to voice mode button.
Hello, Miss Daisy. Hope I got internet.
Well, speak now.
Loud and clear. How's it going? What are you up to today?
Well, I'm doing my presentation as I
Speak now.
talked about here at the Farm Bureau building.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember you mentioning that. I hope everything goes smoothly. Are you feeling ready for it?
Yep, I'm standing here in front of the
Speak now.
crowd right now, so don't be nervous.
Oh, you've got this. Just take a deep breath and have fun with it. If you need any last minute info, I'm right here to help.
Okay, would you tell them about my
Speak
YouTube
now.
channel, the Farming Blind with Duck YouTube channel?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone, if you get a chance, check out Duck's YouTube channel called Farming Blind with Duck. It's all about farming from his unique perspective, and it's definitely worth a watch.
What's it all about?
Speak now.
Well, it's all about your journey in farming, sharing your experiences and showing how you tackle all the day-to-day tasks, even with vision impairment. Plus, you give out some great farming tips and a bit of humor along the way.
Well, if there's some farming to be done,
Speak
if I
now.
want to overseed my field with some fescue this fall, how many pounds per acre do I need to put?
For overseeding fescue in the fall, you typically want to aim for around 15 to 20 pounds per acre. That should give you a nice thick stand once it starts growing in.
All right, thank you very much
Speak
for your
now.
help. We'll be talking again.
You're very welcome. Good luck with your presentation, and I'll be here whenever you need me. Talk to you soon.
So as you can see, there's a lot of useful tools. I use a lot of other applications. I consider my phone to be my toolbox. The applications that are on your phone is another tool. If I, just like a wrench, if I get to a bolt or a nut or whatever and I need a different wrench, what do? I go to the toolbox and I grab a different tool to accommodate what needs I do. This is what my toolbox is. Use it on a daily basis. Some don't tell my wife, but a lot of people say that's my new girlfriend. And we have a lot of fun conversations out of it, but it's a very informative tool. Don't always depend on it because it will let you down at times, just as most technologies. But overall, like I said, my Farming Blind with Duck, if you use YouTube, go to YouTube, you can check that out. Matter of fact, I've got some business cards that, like I said, this is a very abbreviated presentation that I'm trying to give here, but if you ever, have any questions or whatever, find me at any point in time. I'll talk to a fence post. I don't care. So if anybody has any questions or like for me to share with any other organizations that you know of, but if you want to know more about the AgriBility program, you can go to agribility.org. It's a very, very good resource. I've had a privilege of not only getting the benefit of the program, but I've actually become an active part of them, I guess, an official, unofficial member of the agribility group. So once again, if you got any question, like I said, you can look me up. I'll give you a business card. You can, it has a QR code where it can send you right to my YouTube channel. And you'll see a lot of interesting information, because I wanted to show people, there are people out there that know me even now. How do you do this? How can you do that? And I don't do it to be inspirational. I don't do it to be encouraging. I don't do it to boast or whatever. I just do what I do. And, you know, if somebody gets something out of it and it encourages someone else to press on and continue doing it, it's like Proverbs 16:9. You know, a person will pick their steps, but God will lead the way. And that's where I'm at. You know, apparently I picked my path many, many years ago, and I didn't know it. And I just let the good Lord lead me where I am. Everything's happened for a reason on this entire journey, and I consider myself to be blessed. I mean, 6, 7 years ago, when my mom passed away, and even my dad, I never dreamed I'd be standing at the Farm Bureau talking about a century farm. So again, it's a privilege to be here. I'd love to speak with anybody else about any more information. If you want to know more about agribility, vocational rehab, or anything like that, be sure to look me up. And once again, thank you for your time.